Beardy and the Beast, the second wall.
Ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba. This is placeholder intro song.
Welcome to the second wall, binge-free zone where we look at a series and discuss it in small chunks. This time we are looking at Joss Whedon's sci-fi classic, Firefly. We can be found on most podcast and social media platforms, a full list of which can be found at beardyandthebeast.com. Please watch the episode and then join Drew and I in the mess as we explore the verse.
Cat. 4 people to a ship.
No mustaches.
Actually, you know what? I shaved today and I was really tempted to just leave the mustache.
And I remember when we used to do that, just like these weird
Well,
weird shaves. It was funny.
I wanted, like, if there was a video component to this, I would have kept the mustache, at least for the recording, simply because the wash call. But
Yeah. So, out of gas.
honestly, what always amazes me about this is, um, it's something that you said like a decade ago or something like that, when talking about this very episode, and that the comment was, I don't even think it was intentional, like kind of like an offhand, just like observation as it was kind of passing by, and then you remarked on, uh, I had said this was my favorite episode, and you said it's amazing how good it was for just a simple ship in a bottle.
Mhm.
And ever since then, like, that's always kind of resonated with me because um it's quite true.
Yeah. It there's so much happening throughout. It uses great use of flashbacks. Uh, it seems to have Mal's present kind of mirroring what's happening in some of the flashbacks. Uh, it's it's compelling and gripping through. Like one of the big things I noticed is it's amazing how creepy Serenity is when there's no one else on that ship.
Well, that's kind of like, I don't know about you, but whenever, I guess this speaks more to when I was like a teenager, lived with my parents, so forth. Um, Whenever I was home alone, like perhaps, family was out on a hockey tournament or whatnot, I would close all the doors in the house
Mm.
and all the blinds. Not being weird, just like being very aware of my space.
Yeah.
And it kind of gives you that feeling, um especially with like the darkness on Serenity, because most things aren't lit as well. There's
Mhm.
something like creepy, like a creepiness to it. That kind of thing, like seeing things out of the corner of your eye and things echoing, and uh no no bustle, just from people like existing in that same space.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's really well done. Like they captured the atmosphere very well.
You definitely
Um,
you definitely felt like Mel was alone.
mhm.
Um and I feel, I don't know if this is intentional, and it might have been, or it could just have been like your standard flashback episode. Um but because of the way that the flashbacks mirrored what was happening to Mel at any given time,
Mm.
especially with the fact that Mel had been shot, made it seem to me like these were like memories or things that he was actively remembering or reliving as he was progressing from like point A to point B to point C in the ship.
Yeah, I very much agree. Uh, I think at the end, Mal even points to that. It's like, are you guys actually going to be here when I wake up?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, he knows exactly how bad it was. And for this all to be just some sort of, you know, delirium wouldn't have surprised him.
Mm-hmm.
He
That's
was,
like, well, and that almost came off as a like the cynicism of the situation. Like as you said, he wouldn't have been surprised if this was just a hallucination, but also like a need for his family, a need for those people around him.
yeah.
So the emotional call of that as well. It was so weird having like one sentence mirroring two sides of a person, and I might just be projecting, but um, the cynical side of Mal and the emotional, family driven side of Mal, in one statement. It's just
Yeah.
it's how I observed it, anyways.
No, I agree, and I think it's very fitting with his character. Like we've talked multiple times about the double meaning that seems to be there in a lot of the things he says.
Hmm.
So that also wouldn't be surprising.
It kind of talking about the things that he says, the way that he communicates with people. I don't think it's him reading people. I think it's him just instinctually knowing what the right course of action it was.
Mm.
Like the differences between um, how he communicated with Kaylee, to get her moving and her working, and at the same time consoling her, versus um, how he was with Wash.
I was actually going to point out the same type of thing because he I think again there was multiple things happening there. I mean, those are obviously the two most important people to be looking at what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
He tried to be consoling with both, but when he realized it didn't work with Wash, he's like, "Nope, time to get that chain to beat you with it."
Yeah, yeah.
um, and there was kind of a few things there. It's like they're the most important people to try to fix what was going on, and they're also the people most likely to get in the way while they're trying to while they're trying to get Zoe.
True.
So part of it in my mind was like, okay, let's get them out of here so we can focus on things as well. Uh, but it's that natural leadership quality that has come out through Mal's interactions. Uh, right? He knows what needs to be done. He's not inexperienced and knows how to motivate people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's how he became a sergeant.
And I just wanted to point out this a little bit. Like, obviously, this is not a Jayne episode. Um, but what I liked about Jayne in this episode is instead of being confrontational, like, as Mel put it, like, he's good in a pinch.
Yeah.
So, like, he instantly realized that he was out of his depth. And for them to get through this, he needed to um, anticipate the needs of Mel
Yeah.
and listen to what's going on. And that came like there there wasn't anything snippy, there wasn't anything flippant or abrasive. He just like Mel said we needed to get this thing done, so he went and did a thing. And he came back like he was very um he was showing his capabilities and the fact that he is part of the crew, opposed to because they were in that pinch.
Yeah.
So it was a nice side to see.
It was, yeah. There even the so we had one flippant comment, but it also made sense at the time when Wash and Mal were fighting. It's like, hey, what are you doing? Get it together. We need the air. Like it's flippant, but it's also
Well,
accurate. Like
it was a
Jayne
needed
isn't
comment.
dumb. Yeah. Uh, one of the big things that was kind of entering my mind, and I'll spring into this now, just because you brought up Jayne's reaction was I think they were very good at showing because the true method, the true character shows when you hit like basically the end of the line,
Mhm.
right? Like this is their last thing, and I think I think this episode did that very well. Um, I mean, no Zoe, but I don't think we would have gotten anything new from her if she wasn't hurt. Um, but you see it immediately. Wash again, a big negative on him. He just falls apart,
Mhm.
and I get the falling apart because your wife is she's on the deathbed as far as you can tell, and you have no heir. And but for someone who's supposed to have piloting credentials, the length of his leg, I would
Well,
expect experience to kind of kick in there a little bit more.
I had a theory. Check this out.
Okay.
Wash is supposed to be a highly recommended pilot. Again, list of recommendations as long as my leg.
Yeah.
Um, I think the only reason why he was still on Firefly or on Serenity um, is mostly because of Zoe. Like
Yeah.
he's obviously part of the crew and part of the family, um, but a pilot so recommended could probably get more stable, more um, significant stream of finance,
Mhm.
things like that. So the fact that the only thing, again, a theory, in this theory, the only thing that's keeping him there per se is Zoe, and she's very injured. Like that's
Yeah.
his emotional connection to the crew.
Mhm.
Um, it's like his only weak point, I guess you could say. I don't know if I'm expressing
Yeah.
it well.
No, I think I get what you're saying. Um,
I mean, probably easily disputable, but
yeah, I can see that as a theory. I don't know if I necessarily subscribe to it,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, simply because I don't think we've had enough other evidence around that.
And I hope we get some.
Yeah, uh, because again, we have Mal, who's experienced, knows what to do, knows how to keep the crew calm, and try to figure out what's going on. We have Jayne, who is experienced, and as you said, he stepped up to fill Zoe's shoes. Like from Jayne, that's impressive,
Mm-hmm.
right? We had Simon, again, experienced. It was still just about the medical, and he went and did what he needed to do. River was River. I liked how she came across as almost supportive with book reading the Bible, and then just like throws off this other line that just completely throws it out the window. But again, I don't expect her to be flustered from these types of situations with what we've seen from her. Um,
Well, she
Kaylee makes
probably.
perfect.
Well, I mean, she probably deals with it in a similar manner um, to her brother,
Mm,
because they are both very intellectual and very. I guess she's definitely more creative,
yeah,
but I could see her expressions of the morbidity of the situation being a way for her to console herself,
yeah,
in like the same way that Simon talked it through with Honora.
yeah. Uh, and we have Kaylee's reaction makes perfect sense to me. Like,
Yes.
especially in this episode where you find out how inexperienced she actually is. And that's again why Wash seems so out of place to me. He should be experienced enough, and he should know that he needs to be doing everything to get that ship working, or it's not going to matter.
Mhm.
Like the only other thing that they really could have done is Inara clearly has some piloting and basic skills around it. Like they could have had her step in for Wash, but again, they need it to get Wash out of that situation at the moment anyway. So it's just
I mean, Wash, aside from being a pilot, has shown engineering capabilities.
mm,
Um, specifically, like electrical.
yeah,
Um, I don't know if there's it. What I think the skill set between Kaylee and Wash is like the engine room being her specialty.
mm,
But where she lacks when it comes to um, some things that void is filled up by the experience of Wash.
yeah,
Um, but I agree. In fact, I found Kaylee's um, and like the acting was fantastic, but I found her reactions the most believable out of all of them.
mm,
Uh,
yeah,
probably the second most believable reaction to me was Anara pleading with Mel to like just come on a ship
yeah,
because she knew he was like signing up for probably death.
yeah. And I mean, it should have been. I mean, the only reason it wasn't was because Zoe was Zoe,
Hmm.
right? Like that was. I mean, again, that's kind of all the bit of characterization we need from Zoe. She's acting exactly as I expected her to. It was like, nope, we can't leave a man behind,
Hmm.
right? Like,
Well,
it,
it's funny because you have Mel acting exactly as you would expect like sacrificing himself for the slimmest of chances
Mhm.
to get it resolved and like make sure everyone else is as far away from harm as possible. And then Zoe's reaction, as you said, no person left behind. And like, I fully anticipate that if Zoe was awake, she would have like kicked his butt onto a ship.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Uh, they would have found some other way to do that, and I find just to kind of go on Wash a little tiny bit more. I'm trying to figure out how believable it is that Wash, as you said, the electronics communications type seems to be a lot of his skill set.
Mm-hmm.
Where like he can go and completely explain why mucking up someone's navigation system would help them, and just doesn't realize that that's what would help them. Like the amount he gave up there, like just before Mal's like figure something out, kind of.
Well, that wasn't super believable to me. I think the problem with that doesn't come from questioning Wash's as a character's experience. I think it comes from questioning the writing of Wash in this episode. The fact that he just gave up,
Yeah.
um, especially considering he is kind of more of a look on the bright side kind of guy,
Mhm.
like looking for some form of positivity. I I feel like the questionable writing was him like as soon as his wife was down, like there's no point in living. It seemed like he put
Yeah.
on his emo over and his skinny jeans and was listening to Dashboard Confessional. It's just like
Yeah, it's one of those things that's making me, again, like we said before, it's like Wash is just quickly dropping down my rank of characters.
people just like
Uh,
him because like I really liked him, and rewatching this series is making me like him less,
I know.
which kind of sucks because I love Tunic, but it's more of a writing character thing.
Yeah. No, it's completely the writing character. Like, I mean, as an actor, it's great. It is the writing of him, and
Hmm.
again, just not getting that arc. I like that theory that you came up with. It's like the only reason he's still there is because of Zoe.
I mean,
Like,
I'm trying to
it,
make the writing in this episode fit with
yeah,
what should be.
yeah,
It's
but
I'm not going to focus on it too much. I think we've kind of nailed
yeah,
Wash as far as this goes.
yeah,
Um, and instead of focusing on what is and what should have been, I think we should focus on what is and what can be,
mm,
which was the reoccurring theme in this episode. Um,
mm,
so we've discussed many times how they seem to choose a concept or a theme and then interact with it in between various characters, various situations, and it's just layered throughout
yeah,
each episode. And as near as I could see in this one, it was said plainly by Mel when they were looking at the ship. Again, um, instead of looking at what she is, look at what she can be.
yeah.
Uh, there's there's lots of good examples of this. Just to get Wash out of the way, because I don't want to focus
Yeah.
too much on Wash. Um, in the flashback, we had Wash that was,
Mm,
versus what he could be, what he is.
yeah.
So him being like a weirdly cocky, mustached person versus like a caring husband,
Mm.
and not so. I don't know how you explain him, but there's something about him I don't like.
Yep. um, Thanks, Zoe, for nailing our view of Wash so far.
Well, I seen this, like, I don't know if you observed the same thing as me, but I've seen it. I saw it a few times. For instance, even the use of the birthday.
Mm,
The birthday is a symbol, like, even though it doesn't really mean anything more than like another rotation around the sun. Um, it does tend to represent um who you are versus who you're becoming.
mm. Um, I
Or
think the birthday one, like showing the who he's becoming.
mhm.
This is the I think I think this is the first time it was clear to Simon that he is actually part of the crew.
I think so too.
Even Jayne didn't give him a hard time about his birthday.
Well, I mean,
She didn't give him a hard time about the story, but
it was a bad story.
it was a bad story.
Well, that just shows you, like, no matter what you think of his relationship to Simon, like Jayne is accepting him.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it was a good introduction to a concept.
Mhm.
It's something that I saw layered throughout. One thing that I noticed was giving the tour to Inara
Mhm.
in the flashback there when they were kind of introducing her um, first interaction. When she walked in, she was wearing what seemed to be very traditional companion garb,
Yeah.
and she definitely does not dress like in that manner anymore. Seems to dress less showy,
Mhm.
more functional.
Yeah. Um, I I liked the whole interaction with Nora. Like again, I wouldn't say there's anything new we necessarily learned from her in the flashback anyway. Like it's no, She knows how to analyze the situation. She knows exactly what's going on. Isn't afraid to call it like it is. I think that straight cutting honesty is a big reason why Mal and Inara mirror each other again so well,
Hmm.
uh, because they are both like that. Even though, you know, slightly different skill sets, its focuses around.
Hmm.
Um, and the one thing to me that immediately jumped out as like a showing that mirror again
Mm.
is both of them chose Serenity for the same reason.
True.
Like they both said the exact same thing about just falling in love with the ship the first time they laid eyes on it.
Hmm.
Um,
It's interesting to see what was like the interaction of Anara and Mal um, aboard, like in the cockpit of the ship in the past, versus what has become of their relationship, and like the discussion uh, in the present. So what had become.
mhm,
Um, it's interesting seeing like such a starting and ending point such as that.
yeah. Um,
Unfortunately, I also noticed something related to this, the Doctor versus Anara and their discussion on the couch. I can't remember exactly what it was. It definitely followed the same theme.
oh, I remember seeing something, and I think it's like one of the few things I didn't write down. So I did the same thing.
you can also you can also see how much change or evolution between what Jayne was and what he
Mm,
is now. So I think so far as a person and capabilities is actually peaked um, in managing this situation. And you can see that there was some emotional connection. Like, there's no other reason for him to be like waiting in the wings, kind of staring into the room when um, Mal is down or Zoe is down,
yeah.
with like a look of concern, right? Versus like how he was in the past, which was very uh not complex.
I'm surprised how much complexity we keep finding in Jane.
I'm not. He's the best character.
He is. And the rewatch is just proving it. Um, I think a big thing with Jane, um, like as we see his, of course, his introduction
Hmm.
to the crew, and it's basically a Mexican standoff, and you know, him, like Mal just talking to Jane while it's there. It's like I get this impression that Mal saw something more in Jane right from the get go, and realized he just wasn't even appreciated with the group that he was with.
Mm.
Um, we also learned like apparently he's actually a really good tracker as well. Um, not that we've seen much of that, but that's neither here nor there. Something that could come up.
Yeah, we've only seen his long distance firing skills while not looking through a scope, and um, his I guess stealth abilities
Mhm.
when he took out two snipers.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
I guess that kind of so he's coming across like a ranger
yeah.
to me, and I think that's probably what that line was actually going for there. Um, but I think even though it on the surface it makes Jane look like he's just a merc for hire, I think there was something more there. I think he just realized that there's better out there. Almost what I got from that, like just reading that little tiny bit deeper. Especially when you see he is not turning on this crew.
Hmm.
I think that's the true value he gets from it, actually being part of it.
Well, it's being valued.
Yeah, and it's just it's great to see that throughout. I mean, I get where that just raises the whole loyalty questions again from him. It's like, oh, maybe he would just be to the highest bidder, but yeah, no, read that little bit deeper. It's the being valued
Mm-hmm.
and the freedom that Serenity brings with it, which is another big thing that they were brought up multiple times throughout the episode. As it kind of talks about, we haven't really talked about, I guess, Kaylee's before and after. Um,
For like, I was considering this. There there is like an adventurous, independent streak that is implied with or just signing up to go with a random crew just for the
mm,
opportunity for the ship
yeah,
versus like how bound she is with the ship. It's almost like Serenity is her sister, you know?
yeah,
Um like I think and they've expressed this a bunch of times. Kaylee loves the ship like she loves the crew.
yeah.
And it instead of her as a character, it kind of does this weird like pseudo bookmarking on the ship.
Mm,
So the phrase of you can stay on as long as you can keep her in the air
mhm,
versus it can't be fixed and I'm sending you away on this ship.
yeah,
So as far as the story goes, it's putting like a hard stop on like Serenity as a uh I guess as a character.
mhm,
Um and I think in that place it's more so about Serenity than it is Kaylee.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, we've always talked about Serenity as a
Mhm.
character as well. I mean, I like that idea of it's basically Kaylee's sister.
Mhm.
That's a really good way of putting it because they're tied. uh, I think the thing that I find with Kaylee as a character is like she hasn't, unlike pretty much everyone else on this ship who has basically been hardened
Mhm.
by life. She's still that curious, adventurous prairie girl.
Yeah.
Like she hasn't lost that, which is kind of refreshing.
There's a reason why everyone had a crush on Kaylee and not on Inara. Except for the people who identified with Kaylee, then they were the ones who had a crush on Inara.
Yeah, pretty much.
Um,
um,
the
I,
another odd set um, comparison
hmm,
is not the characters themselves, but the relationship um, versus what was versus what is,
hmm.
or what could be, is actually from how many episodes was it ago?
Good luck finding that on IMDb.
Uh, I think it was Jamestown last episode.
Yeah.
Um, how it almost seems like through those interactions in Jamestown, Book and River have become closer.
Hmm.
Um, like I honestly see River showing care for Book in that interaction, not just being a weird girl. I think like she feels close, but she can't express it.
That's
Um,
that's how I read that too. Uh, like I know I said, it's like, yeah, sure, she ends up being with the, oh, you're gonna freeze first, but I do think she was honestly trying to be consoling,
mhm.
I, as best she can. I mean, she's broken, and that's what I take from her adding that extra line. It was like the filter is gone, so she can't
Yeah.
not say it, right? Because there was that bit of a pause around it.
Well, I think
Um,
there's only two people that could. It was obvious that I wouldn't say questioning his faith, but he was definitely. I think he was definitely reaching out um, for help. I guess you could say.
mm,
And there's only two people that'd be able to console him on the ship.
mm,
One's Mel and one is River.
yeah,
Um, Mel is quite obviously preoccupied with much more important things, and this is some great acting from Book.
mm,
Like you could actually see at least some emotional relief coming over
mhm.
his face, and then the confusion to the like being a little horrified about that interaction with River,
You
which is
know,
really
it,
interesting.
it's funny. Not tied to the episode, but I always find this funny. Apparently, it's actually like when you're in a ship, it's actually less. You're like not likely to freeze to death. You're actually more likely to boil.
Oh,
Um, when stuff like that happens, because just because of the way heat transfers, uh, because it's in a vacuum, there's nothing to dissipate the heat.
mm. Oh, this
So
kind of harkens back to my cool fact that spiders can't drown. So when you wash them down the sink, they just crawl back out later.
yeah, yeah, it's.
If you're a bat bog, you've heard that a couple times.
um yeah, no, apparently one of the bigger issues when it comes to like space travel isn't the heating, it's the cooling. um which,
Makes
in
sense.
fact, um uh but I mean most people are going to talk about the coldest space, so that's fine, I get
Hmm.
it. um yeah, like the pairings that happened throughout this, like they made sense to me. Like the only one River could have gone to was Book,
Hmm.
even though there might have been others that could have gone, like Book could have gone to. Like could have Book and Inara probably could have been an interesting pair too, but again, I don't think we would have gained anything from that type of pairing.
No, I think the the Doctor and Inara comparison. Oh, it was something that oh, something in the interaction. Wish I could remember offhand. Um, but you know what? There's something the intro, the quiet intro into the um captain falling, and then like the way they went into the actual like incident.
Mhm.
In hindsight, is so obvious. It's just so obvious in hindsight, but it's somehow very unexpected in context. So like on a first watch through, I could see you being like, did they evacuate the ship, or like were they arrested or something like that?
Mhm.
So the way that they like just got to the punch and then got on with the story was really nice in this episode.
Mhm.
It's
Yes.
probably like 5 minutes of watch time total, and the rest is just content
Mhm.
instead of all introduction.
I think the big thing. Okay, so I started to pull up the quotes for Simon and Nara because it's on my mind too. Um.
Link
So
it to me, I guess.
yeah, yeah. Uh,
Throw it in the Discord.
I was in fact going to.
Discord
They,
details in the description.
yes,
Wait, are they?
I think so.
Should ask the
Uh,
guy who posts them.
yeah. Calms.
Oh, such a good interaction. Like you pull so much from the Simon verse in our interaction.
Yeah. It's like 6 lines.
And like even though I think Simon is still creepy AF, like the depth of his character and like the complexity of it is just like it's been on display since episode 1.
So the big thing that I find with Simon, because you're saying him and River, they're very smart, they're very analytical,
mhm.
and that's really what he's trying to. He's just trying to be analytical, and Inara, of course, being the emotional core, is like, no, this isn't what we need, and his response is like, it's my birthday. Like, I, I don't know. There's just, I don't know. It's just a powerful interaction. Um,
Yeah, it was definitely it, it might even I mean this might be just going too Hail Mary too far. Because I still think a lot of the like Whedonism writing is half coincidental, half planned. I don't think it's genius, but I am going to ascribe some genius to this interaction.
Mm.
So hold on to your hats. Yes, the 6 hats you're wearing. Um,
right.
the interaction here is almost even like the extremes of the 2 states that the crew is feeling at any given time during this episode. So we have the hyper analytical. That's the um, clinical description of what's going to occur, versus like the emotion. So this the mind versus heart.
Yeah.
So Anara representing the emotion of the situation,
Yeah.
and like both putting on a brave face, but you can definitely tell that they're disconnecting and trying to deal with it in their own way, but even so, still kind of like reaching out.
Hmm. It's just,
As
and so much.
always, the best is probably somewhere in the middle of 2 states.
Yeah. Like, there's just so much said about it. So, like, even like just looking at it. So, I know we already talked about Inara's love of the ship from the first moment she saw it.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that in relation to Mal. But I mean, even Simon's response is like, no, I love this ship too, even though that's not what he says, right? His immediate response is, I just don't want to die on it. Like, he's just as attached to the ship as the rest of the crew is at this
Mm-hmm.
point.
That's
Um,
that's a great observation. Like the exact quote, "I love the ship. I have from the first moment I saw it." The reply being, "I just don't want to die on it." He's that's almost even confirming what she said.
mhm. Yeah.
I do want to point out one thing. He says, "Always thought the name Serenity has a vaguely funereal sound to it."
Yeah.
In the very last scene, while Mao is alone and walking towards uh, the helm,
Mhm.
he was going down the hallway. I actually wrote down the words "funeral march" because it really felt like almost even like the front of a funeral procession.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just a like an interesting thing I'm observing now.
There's so much going on in this episode. It's actually, even with notes, I'm finding it hard to keep track of it and discuss because there's moments like this throughout. Um, and I've always taken the time Serenity. I never thought of it as having a funereal sound. I always thought of it as peace. I see exactly where he gets that from. Um, so, I mean, for me, I've always just connected it to this is where they find home. This is where they can relax. This is where they can be themselves.
See,
So,
I always thought it is the objective, the
mhm,
goal.
yeah.
Um, they have this freedom and this ability of flight, and Serenity is the destination.
Mhm,
Um, so I guess fundamentally, I also agree with what you're saying.
yeah.
It's a good.
uh,
I think it's a good observation.
yeah. It's and it's funny because it's named after a battle site, but that's just where the name happens to come from. The meaning, again, double meanings throughout.
Hmm. Couldn't they have? Couldn't they have turned on the two, like cordon off a bunch of space, um, open the doors to the shuttles, and then just used their life support?
So, well, yes, that is an obvious question. Um, I want to say no.
Okay.
And the reason for this is like I've seen this in other sci-fi series. So let's think um Star Trek Voyager, for example. Right? You've got the main ship and then you've got the Delta Flyer.
Hmm.
Delta Flyer is a short range vessel. It can support a couple of people for a couple of days because that's as far as you're supposed to be going on it.
Hmm.
So these are even smaller than that. Like I think the idea is it's supposed to be able to go, like to a moon and
Well,
back. It's not
well, even
it's
said
not
wide orbit and return was.
yeah.
I mean, I fundamentally, I like the plan,
Yeah.
like spread it out. It's just like,
Yeah. I would think in a short range vest like that, like its life support is going to be some like basic scrubbers, nothing major to
mm-hmm.
support any long period of time. Um, it's literally so you don't necessarily have to take the ship planet side. And something that small isn't going to be able to generate enough air for a ship that size.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Not in the time frame. Like they could do some high science stuff and build a life support using the two life support modules, blah blah blah. But I don't think they had the time for that.
I'm pretty sure they had like 4 hours.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they actually said like 2 to 4 hours or something like that.
I missed the time thing
Yeah.
then. But
Yeah. That
it's
they didn't
possible.
have much.
Yeah, time, lack of time being everyone's constant always.
Yeah. I like how they kind of, I know you mentioned this with Kaylee. It's like you can be on her as long as you keep her in the air. Again, it was said many a times throughout. It's like treat her proper, she'll be with you the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's no one expected the possibility that that would be the rest of their life.
Really, this is just the character Serenity's episode,
It is.
which I like. I know fundamentally that's how. Um. So the ship can be one of three things.
Mm,
So it can just be an object.
yeah.
It can be a plot, and it can be a character.
Mhm.
And this is how companies tend to look at them when it comes to the way that they're integrated with stories, but also uh, how it deals with like copyright.
Mm.
Um, give me a sec. Take Eleanor from Gone in 60 Seconds.
Mm.
Um, is considered a character,
Yeah.
and is like copyrighted as such. So having a and they protect that copyright. Like if you were to create a replica and call it Eleanor, like they've actually, I'm not sure how this was done legally, but like uh, reproduction has been confiscated from a person.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, Compared to the time machine
Hmm.
in Back to the Future.
The
Uh,
DeLorean.
yeah, and
Yeah.
they call it the time machine or whatever. But the
Yeah.
other perspective is um, Eleanor is treated as a character, but the time machine is treated as a plot.
Hmm.
Um, and I think, I mean, if someone were to describe Out of Gas in the most succinct way, it would probably be the phrase introducing Serenity as a character,
Hmm.
or Serenity's introduction as a character.
Yeah.
Whereas other people have had their introductions.
Yeah. It it's interesting, like just describing the vehicles like that. 'Cause it's funny, like I don't know. Was a big Star Wars fan, and like the Falcon. And now I'm trying to put like the Millennium Falcon in that. And like, no, I think the Millennium Falcon actually ends up being just an object. It doesn't have Han has character, but I don't think the Falcon does in the same way.
Yeah, I think um, in Solo you could probably make an argument of it being a plot. Um,
I don't know what movie you're talking about.
I didn't mind it.
It did
Like,
bad. I couldn't get into it. I couldn't care less. I tried to watch.
but look,
Yeah.
Solo punched a moon out of space with his fist laser. That's all that matters. The Rogue One was great.
Yes. I enjoyed Rogue One a lot. Anyway.
But yeah,
That's
like,
beside the point.
I mean, characters can also be plots.
Yeah. I mean,
But I guess I didn't need to say that.
yeah.
But um,
I, I think to go on to the like this is a character, uh, Serenity is personified even more throughout this,
mhm.
and personified in such a way that it makes me go, it's like, why did Kaylee and Serenity have a spat that Serenity couldn't tell her that there was something wrong?
That's because she was too focused on Simon.
Hmm?
It's just like, uh, I mean, I don't really have close siblings in that manner, but I
Yeah,
could see like if there's two sisters and one of them like starts liking this boy, the other sister feeling a bit abandoned.
yeah. Right. It's just amazing that they did enough characterization with the ship that this is a legitimate question that we can try to answer. Like,
Well, if anything, this even reinforces um what you were saying. Um like second recording, I think episode 3, when when we're discussing the characters as being um the relationship in the crew and towards each other.
mm,
And then at that time we were discussing like uh Kaylee being the heart of the ship.
yeah,
But we weren't talking necessarily about the ship being a character.
yeah,
We were talking about the ship as a reference to the crew. So in this
mm,
case, we can kind of extrapolate that to as the crew has grown, the personification of Serenity has grown as well.
yeah.
Um, so we see um, like the fear of death from Anara in this.
Mhm.
And we can kind of project or imprint that onto the ship itself.
Yeah.
We can have Kaylee being lost and not knowing what to do. We can also have like, I can't think of how to put it to words, like Shepherd Book and his interaction with it. I mean, we could even have Wash as a representation of loss of direction.
Yeah.
Not knowing which direction or which path is the most appropriate.
Which is actually interesting coming from the pilot.
I tell you what, just to change this, because I
Yeah.
don't think we really need to focus on that
Yeah.
too much, because we talked a lot about it. But I just like kind of harkening back to what we discussed previously. It just
Yeah.
reinforces your personification point.
Yeah.
I do love the pseudo breakup / makeup between Wash and Mal.
Mm.
Like their relationship went through some trials and tribulations, and then
God, how many people are shipping that?
but no, it's just like they had that conflict, they were at odds, and to a severity where you would almost like expect that it would break some bonds.
Mhm.
Because I mean, we know that Mal was not saying "F your wife, get back to work."
Yeah.
But when you're distraught over your loved one being extremely injured and possibly dying, how are you going to take
Mhm.
that situation? Like, what is the emotional impact on you?
Yeah.
So, that occurred. And then, of course, that went into the conflict on the bridge. And then there was kind of a loss or a longing, I guess you could represent it, when Wash went back and like configured the recall button.
Mhm.
But then when Mal wakes up and he sees Wash being the one that is like transfusing blood into him,
Yeah.
because obviously he lost a lot of blood, and so something about the way that it was represented, it didn't feel brotherly. Like the way that Wash was like smiling at the captain.
See, it's just Wash projecting Zoe's feelings now. Because you got to remember, we generally look at Zoe and Wash as a unit.
Well, that's because there's not enough of Wash to merit his own character.
That is the one thing that I'm like, okay, this is the good thing with Wash when he went to go and just configure that button. I'm like,
Mhm.
there, that's the type of stuff that I thought there was more of with Wash. Again, showing initiative, even though it's a dire situation. He didn't give up at that point. um,
Well, I think I was trying to avoid going back to Wash, but
I know.
I think he regained some of his direction when he
Mhm.
realized the potential sacrifice of Mal,
Yeah.
and that just kind of is that like emotional backhand saying no, like Mal's actually doing this to save us all.
Yeah.
Um, so that kind of snapped Wash back to how we would expect him to be.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, so yeah, back off. Wash. A couple of things that I really liked. I liked Kaylee's double entendre to the "she ain't moving"
Hmm.
line, right? where everyone's like, "Oh no, it's talking about Zoe," and it's like, and she's like, immediate is like, the ship also is dead. Um, Again, just showing that connection. Like, I don't think anyone else quite realized how bad it was with what had happened to her yet. Um,
You know what?
yeah.
I almost wish they had paralleled that more.
Mhm.
They probably couldn't because of time.
Yeah.
Um, but if they had revealed something about Zoe
Mhm.
and then mirrored that with something happening in the ship, and then revealed something about the ship, and then mirrored that with something happening with Zoe. But
Yeah.
that would be a very different episode. One I'd want to
Mhm.
see,
Yeah.
but I wish it was a direction that.
I think they were trying to put up that little bit of a mirror, but is that there was just a lot going on that there really wasn't anything you could cut out to focus that more.
Yeah, where do you steal that time from?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, and that's just part of the 43-minute episodes that, we had in the olden days.
Hmm.
These young whippersnappers don't get it anymore when they have with
Get
their
off
two and a
my
half hour episodes.
lawn! I really want to watch the new Stranger Things, but it just takes so much time.
But I watched it a few weeks ago, and we're like, oh, okay, it was getting pretty late. Oh, there's only one more episode left. Whatever. Sometimes, an extra hour, 2.5 hours. Well, that's being put off till next week.
Yeah. And that sucks because, like, I really like those characters and I like what they've been doing. Like, there's nothing with that yet that I've gone, no, I don't like that. I've definitely went odd choice, but sure, I get it. Anyways,
um,
uh,
um, the other thing that we didn't really say, um, just with River again.
hmm.
Again, just those flashes of what is up with River.
Oh, you notice how she wasn't freaking out or being spastic,
Yeah. Yep.
and no one else on board was freaking out and being spastic.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there was like a morbidity to
Yeah.
it. So in context, like with what I'm seeing from her right now, and Serenity's a character. Um, I still don't know what's up with her. Uh, but the thing I noticed was her empathic reflection to the crew.
Mm-hmm. Um, there's definitely that. I know. I mean, obviously, put a pin in River and Serenity as a character. Um, but the empathic part aside, like that's definitely part of it. Um, I'm actually more referring to at the birthday dinner. She knew there was a fire before anything happened. Like she gave a warning. So it still makes me go like, what what did they do to your head? Like,
I think the problem I have with the way that they're writing it is because this is what I'd prefer. Just like hyper observational with no filter. But she's so smart she can make some type of semblance of coherency from it. So, um, but they're going more fantastical. They're going, um, psychic. They're not making it. I feel like they're getting out of a grounded route and they're pushing into high sci-fi, high fantasy with what they're doing
Mhm.
with what's with River. Um,
You know, because you're right. I'd always like to see that. Like, I agree. I prefer the interpretation of just that hyper observant,
mm,
right? Her empathy, her reactions. It's all like it's all from, yeah, no filter, sees everything, and like it makes me wonder, is that where they're wanting to go, but make it seem fantastical? Because we only get like a snippet or two like this every episode.
mm.
We're not actually getting anything around her. We haven't been able to explore any of it. We're just getting the the glimpses.
Well, let's do it this way. Let's l- let me try to explain two situations, one this fire one and one the Reaver guy.
Right.
Um, if it is just hyper observational.
Mhm.
So when River came on board and woke up and showed some type of stableness, she was able to accurately explain um, the model and make of Serenity just from memory.
Right.
So whatever they've done to her, I believe that she is very familiar with the makings and at least the basic construction and design of this ship.
Yep.
Um, Having been on it and fully explored it, as they've shown her skulking around in um,
Everything.
everything, yeah. Um, it's entirely possible for her to go to three different sections of the ship, observe something, and then using her intellect at the dinner, like hear a click
Mhm.
or a whir, and her brain just goes, um, that's the catalyst converter, and it's about to explode. It's gonna um, create a large fiery explosion in the engine room, which will push it on this way.
Yeah.
She doesn't know how to express that, um, and she may not even know she's doing it.
Mhm.
So instead, she says fire once she hears that initial sound.
Yeah.
That's like hyper like nth degree observation and like a very high level intellect putting it all together, but of course she's a little bit loose.
Yeah.
Um, and you can do the same thing with the guy who was which witnessed the Reavers.
Mhm.
She could come to uh, a logical conclusion that he's going to go crazy, start cutting on himself, and start attacking people, just using the base observations of like what people are saying, what has occurred, and what would the expected psychological result be. So
Yeah.
it's kind of
Well,
like that book, the Blink, the Power of Thinking Without Thinking, how your brain can make inform or correct decisions using little to no information.
yeah.
Um, Effectively that, but just cranked up to not even 11, like 12.
Yeah. I and I agree with that. 'Cause going back to the Reaver, I know we were discussing a lot of like, could this be interesting editing choices that are leading to these thoughts as well? Because we had
Mm.
similar thoughts with oh, what was that episode called? Uh, oh, why does my brain go dead? So a couple episodes ago, when Simon got captured. Um, yeah, whichever one it was. Because again, there was just kind of those editing choices where it's like, is she connecting to something or is there? I was actually going to go with the exact same explanation for the fire as you did.
Okay.
So I'm there with you. Uh, So yeah, I do think they're trying to make it seem more fantastical than it is. I mean, don't get me wrong. That level of observation still pretty fantastical, but we're also coming from Joss Whedon, where we're known to have psychics and magic powers, and
Mhm.
so um, I
Well,
almost wonder if he's playing on that some.
like expects us, like given his other works, expects us to go like, oh, here comes the wizard. You know,
Yeah,
that makes
yeah,
sense. Like kind of subverting expectations.
yeah, yeah. You know, in a good way.
No, see, subverting expectations can usually be good. Subverting the viewer is rarely good.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways,
Time
moral
to-
moral of the story: Serenity is a character. Uh, Kaylee's Bay. Uh, Kyla's
well,
converter is
she's both.
everything until you or nothing part until you don't have one.
And one day, Wash won't be a nothing part.
No, he'll be a leaf in the wind.
Aw, look at it soar. Hey, thanks again for huddling around the second wall with us here tonight. Join us next time as we continue our discussion of Firefly. Please join the conversation in the comments, on social media, or at our Discord, where we would love to get your thoughts. And of course, if you like what we do, please share us with your friends.